right? So these are the greps, these are the values that we will use, these are the assertions that will be made, and this is the old stuff. All right, so let's do all the assertions for all the other steps. All right, I will just provide them in the Discord channel as before. For delete, yeah, we'll just, you can already do it. Just change the status to expected variable name. Right there, all right, where we had 204, because we will have the 404 in the end of the test. Change that. We won't need get all calls for the test. If we'll have time, we'll add it tomorrow. So for the get call, we need the assertions. We don't need any greps. And I'll share it with you as well. All right. So this is for get call, right? And we need assertions and no, just the assertions for the update call. All right, and the principle is the same as before, right? So assertions, we assert some certain fields, and then we grep certain fields. Yeah, so for update, why we need the grep is because we did some updates, and then we will loop through the updated values and check them against the get calls again in the loops. I think actually if we just run this, we should see the values pass even if we don't loop them. You can check by running it. Let's run it. Okay, it still fails. I think because of status is still not checked. So yeah, the status, we don't set it. That's why it fails. But for other things, we can see for the other assertions, it's passing.
Can I have a question?
Yes, of course.
And there is just one get call step. How do you define the two possible outcomes? That in step 2 will be asserted that one and
yeah. So that's where we're going right now. So now we have a very simple thing that doesn't work like we want, because we are setting up for a more advanced test case with multiple inputs. With single inputs, it would be just like providing one variable and that's it, and running, and we should be fine with that. But what happens with multiple inputs? So for multiple inputs, we have a loop feature which can be used on the test case. So the steps are ready. We don't need to change anything in the steps. And if you have really detailed documentation on the API side, then you can have all the stuff already preset, and just by updating the documentation, by importing the documentation again, you should automatically update the steps as well. We still have work in progress on a task to add automatic assertions, but everything else should be as it is right now during our workshop. So we see that the loop. So what loop does? It has, first it's a list of these loop objects. Each loop object has range, which is the range for the steps. So you can loop one step or a group of steps. For example, you can have like one through, I don't know, through the last step, and then sequentially just go through each of them. But what we want to do is actually just loop through creation. Let's create 10 different 10 different call logs. Then we'll get again loop through the get to assert that. Then we'll loop through the update, again through the get, through the delete, and through the get again in the end. So then we'll need these lists of our values that we grabbed before. And we can have, so like I said, more of those. So we'll have the steps in ranges for each step, and then have multiple of those. Again, to speed up the process and not type it all manually right now, I'll share you the ready loops, and we'll go through them, and I'll explain how it works. I'll share it in the Discord channel. Hopefully it doesn't exceed 2,000 characters. It doesn't. All right, good. So take this, go to your test case, call resource CRUD, and just copy beneath the steps. Don't create a dash. Dash just means that you're adding another list item. So just it should look like that. So it's on the same level as the vars, the default collection, the steps, and yeah, the loops there. So let me explain. So range. So again, we're ranging through the first step, which is create call log, create call JSON. The count. So the count can be dynamic. Let's add it to the vars section. So count. Let's say we want 10 different combinations of inputs. So very important building blocks of a loop is list and positions, right? Many times in the code, when you write your tests, you want to loop through some inputs, right? You want to loop through some lists of values. So here we added a feature of list and positions. So basically, it's a static list of different inputs that you want to test. We want to test just like basic inputs, like just alphanumeric characters. And we want to test that our service accepts some weird characters, not weird characters, but special characters. Then just numeric, then with like spaces between them, Unicode text. And there's one commented out that I know the server can't handle. So, for example, if I leave it like that, it should fail for us. Leave it commented out. For the description section, again, some other inputs. All right, and there we have our status field. So these are the variable names, which are actual positions in the steps, right? So if in this first step we have those positions, they will get substituted in each turn, in each cycle of a loop with these values, right? So if we say the calls variable is more than 10 and we don't have actually 10 inputs right there, it will still go around, and that's why I said we would have maybe different combinations. So for example, if we have more of this or less, then it would start and combine different sets of those inputs. Again, there's no limitation on positions that you can use. For now, we're just using name and description and the status. Status is just one, so we'll just loop through the same status 201 and assert that all the loops, all the responses on those loops are 201, all right? Range 2. So we're ranging through the get call, again, the same times as before. And here we have the other very important building block of loop, which is variable in positions. So before with list in positions, we just use a static inputs. With variable in positions, we're using those lists, right, that we grabbed, that we have in our grep section under create and under update call step. So I want the IDs come from the log ID list that are grabbed during the creation, the name again from that list, and description from that list. That's it. And for list and for the status, we just use the ordinary list in positions. We want our static 200. Okay. All right. So the third loop for the update, again, we use some static, some generated things. So in Appimation, we have some predefined functions that users can use. So for generating some random data, for example, we want to generate random string and use it as a name. And that can be found again in the wiki page under Appimation functions for data generation. Again, we don't have a lot of things here based on the fact that we don't get lots of requests. Again, if we have requests on some commonly used functionality, we can add it, and it will be visible here and usable from in the tests. So for data manipulation, some functions and some specific HMAC from request. And we have also JavaScript functionality. So you can have JavaScript running on during the test, during the runtime of the test. But again, that's some advanced features which in most of the cases you don't need to have. So let's rerun it again, have the report, and just go through the report and see what we did there. So we see that instead of those 6 steps, we have run 60 total steps. Our pass rate is 60 from 60, so it's all green. And if we open the section for each step, expand it, and we see the assertions, right? So we have 3 assertions on the create call for each of the steps. We see that we are asserting different extracted values to different expected values, which is good, which is what we wanted. We have our different inputs, and we assert against them. We can see those inputs going through here. So we didn't set the destination, we didn't set the source, we didn't set the URL. Again, we can have them dynamically generated, or get them from the static list, or just have one variable. So let's go and create that one variable for each, right? Just to not have the $sign something. So destination, let's say test API, the source automation workshop, all right? And the URL, let's set it to testdevelab.com. All right, so we should see those values set as well. Rerun, get to our report, open that up, and we see those values set as well. So this is the actual raw HTTP request that was sent by the test engine worker from our each machine to test the test API that has been deployed on my machine right there. So yeah, we have our different inputs, we have our different responses from the server. We see it handles everything well. So we see 10 create calls, we see the 10 get calls. Again, we are asserting based on the list that was saved from the previous create call. So with different IDs, right? Just to show you there. We're asserting that Chinese and Russian characters together are good for the server. Then we are updating again with different information, with some generated data right there, right? And after updates, we again take the updated lists and assert on them. So we see that, yeah, those generated data are there as well. Still same IDs for the calls that we created for the first 10 steps. And we have the delete call in the end, and we see, yeah, it's being deleted, 204. And the last after delete, we have get calls to assert that, yep, they are all being deleted. So we take the same IDs and just go through them. We get 404 not found. Again, we could assert, if there would be a requirement that the 404 body is empty, we could assert that the body is empty. But it's okay for us, we don't care. And it's for all of those. So right now what we did, we just created a quick all functionality CRUD test case for our test API. All right, so again, if we would have more resources, we would just simply take something similar, take the copy of that test scenario and test for all those other resources, same thing. So this is how we easily cover smoke functionality, right? This is the very basic API test for CRUD functionality.